ask, it's more of a universal question applicable to the students who come to Vedanta. In your observation, what is the defining quality or attribute that determines whether one's successful in Vedanta or not through the course of their time spending with you or James or any other teacher?
Well, the most important, not the most basic, the most fundamental, but the most important is the burning desire for liberation. You know? When you see when someone is really into it, you know, his mind gets kind of obsessed. One does not get much distracted. One is always thinking, ask questions and so on, and contemplate and going here, going wherever there is a group of Vedantins contemplating. There's the work home. So that is the signal that one has really developed a value for self-knowledge above all other values, you know.
And why do they not have a burning desire?
Huh?
And what is the cause of one not having a burning desire?
One does not have a burning desire to the degree that one did not yet understood the value of Vedanta. So to the degree that I did not really completely understood that the only love, security, joy, happiness lies in self-knowledge, to the degree that I don't have that clear, I'm going to be distracted by all other objects in the field. Projects, ideas and whatnot, trips and then to the degree that maturity settles in, and then the individual knows, has the value. Now I understood. This burning desire does not come like that. You know, it has come always backed up by logic. I understood now. I have examined my own experience based on the logic of the script, and I saw that there is nothing much in the world for us. Appears as if it's shiny and it's beautiful, it's attractive, but as we become older and wiser, and sometimes we are young and wise, but it's rare. And then we start attributing value to the only real valuable thing in life. Because even when we chase things, we only get happy because our mind resolves in its own natural state, so to speak, state of the mind, free from those excess of disturbance, unnecessary disturbance.
I for myself can say that the term burning desire doesn't really apply like that. With me it was more, actually there was nothing else to do. Like Dave says, as long as you think you can somehow get it from samsara, but actually you're not there because of Vedanta.
Yeah.
That also of me the burning, that it was clear I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
But it was not like I was in burning flames, Vedanta. But the only thing I turned to was Vedanta, because the rest lost his interest.
Yeah, Diederik is describing another very important qualification, which is dispassion. You know, the moment that you understand that there is nothing here for you, you become dispassionate towards the world, and then you turn your mind to yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess they cannot be sped up because one has to recognize and conclude that by themselves, that no amount of objects presented to them can bring lasting joy. For example, the example shared yesterday, where you were on the stage and talking about there's no value in objects, and then half the people went out.
Right.
That's just, one cannot do much about that, right?
No.
No, it's maturity.
Yeah. And when we want to share Vedanta, we need to be prepared for that. That you may not find much of an audience, and you don't want to compromise the integrity of the teachings for the sake of keeping your audience, you know. And saying that in relationship to you, because I know that you like to share, and you are very much encouraged to share Vedanta. Anybody is encouraged to share Vedanta. But you need to know what you're going into, too, you know. And one has to examine one's motivations and present your understanding of the teachings in a very simple and honest way. So, It's like I do. I'm not a teacher. I just share the knowledge. And I have a teacher who believes that I can do it. So just share the knowledge. The knowledge wants to be shared. A lot of people are going to be touched. But the moment we share the knowledge, say, I'm the greatest teacher, and here goes the teaching. And then if you are not really highly qualified, and if your life is not really a good translation of that knowledge, it may get people confused about what Vedanta is. Yes, sir.
One of the things that I learned from Ramji is that you can have a burning desire for liberation. However, there's also a thing called karma. And there might just be karma that first needs to be addressed, like certain karma needs to be worked out before you fully can, put your mind one-pointedness on Vedanta. And that's, so then you don't feel bad about yourself, like, wow, I'm interested, but then you see yourself, other things need to be worked out.
Yeah, and again, I can tell this firsthand. I was reading the life of all these sages, and then I saw Ramana Maharaj walked away from his life. Somebody else walked away from his life. Nisargadatta Maharaj walked away from his life. Halfway, he was convinced by some friends, don't do it. It's not going to help you. Go back and stay in your bead shop, running your life, And a lot of people try to run away, but Papaji tried to run away, and Ramana, although Ramana ran away from his life, and Ramana pulled Papaji, no, go back there, take care of your family. You understand? Just follow your Parabhada Karma. For every person is different, but I had this impulse to walk away from my life as well. But I had a restaurant, I had family, my son, my wife involved, and a business running, and I tried to sell that business for 1 year. And I was like, I'm going to walk away from all of that. And then I had some friends giving me good advice. No, be patient, take it easy, and trust in the process. Go there and serve food to people. Serve wine to people. And so on. So we had to catch up with our Parabhada Karma. We cannot push it somehow.
That's why it's rare with young people. Ramji said, you can come to Vedanta when you're young, but it might not become the focal point because of this karma.
Definitely. Young people very rarely have this karma in line. They have a lot of rajas they want to touch, feel, and experience. I mentioned briefly an example of a friend of mine in Brazil. The guy has a brilliant mind and so on, and he was coming from the Buddhist background, and he was into it, and we were very much in contact over the internet and WhatsApp and Facebook. And I knew what was happening in his life: marriage, beginning a business, moved from São Paulo to a small, beautiful town, and then have to start his life again, and then Vedanta come into their life, he goes crazy for Vedanta, and then the wife gets pregnant of the second child. When he told me that, I said, oh no, rather than say, hey, beautiful, you're gonna be dead again. I couldn't hold myself. I was, oh shit, no, man. He said, oh no, I did not know there was something not appropriate. I said, man, it's already complicated now. But anyhow, Parabhada Karma is lined up and does not save anyone. And now, I was sharing with Kalinda the day, this guy is on fire and his mind is just like that, opening up, and he's understanding everything. He saved me a lot of work. We have a Facebook group there that he's answering most of the questions for me. And he's really clear, the knowledge is becoming clear and clear and clear, and he still has 2 children, a wife and a business, but somehow, he's no longer in that kind of time lag, and his karma caught up with him, and he's taking all together. I was saying today, you don't have any option, you have to do both. You have to do your roles in the world, at the same time, your self-inquiry, your inner work. We were born in the world, and that's our nature. We are householders. We are not sannyasis, otherwise we would have born in the environment of sannyasis, in the culture supported to sannyasis and so on. What happened to the Brazilians? I know that in Brazil they are always late, but not in India.
May I raise a last question before you begin?
Yeah.
Can you help me to understand where the knower stays? Is it below the line?
It's all over the place, my dear. The knower is all over the place. It's here, and it's here. There are two places for the knower. It's the mind and it's the self. It's the self fundamentally. We are talking about two orders of reality, of the same reality, okay? When we look from that standpoint, there is only one knower, because nobody knows anything except the self is backing that knowing entity, backing up the knowing entity. So every experience is an experience of the self. Every knowledge is a knowledge of the self, fundamentally. This is not a reality, this is more an apparent reality. Okay? So, but from the apparent jiva, he appears as the knower. But once he understands that he is not only the image in the mirror, but he is the self. And then he acknowledges that the self is the knower. Actually, as I said earlier today, there is the jiva, there is the Ishvara, and there is the self. So he acknowledged all these orders of reality.
Is it possible to confuse the knower with the intellect? I mean,
The intellect is the knower, and this is the confusion. We take the I to be the reflect I.
Exactly.
The self to be the reflect self. The self, the I thought or the knower, it's just the reflect self. No matter how purified it may be, how sattvic. You remember Nisargadatta Maharaj talking about the I sense, or Ramana, the I thought, the original I sense. He used to call that pure consciousness. But no, that is the reflect I. The self reflects on the subtle body of a purified mind.
When I'm saying it's too abstract. When I say I can observe, I can observe the jiva. I know I'm not the jiva. Who is that? Is the intellect interpreting the experience of the jiva, right?
No, there is the self. The self is the only thing observing you and your mind and your thoughts and your judgments. But you take the reflection of the self to be the self. Fundamentally, it's the self who's watching all of that, because you have made a stand as the jiva, as the mind. You need to make a stand here, and then you understand that there is only the self knowing and objectifying everything, with the aid, of course, of a subtle body. You understand? Are you the subtle body? No, you are a reflection of the subtle body that we call the jiva. Okay? Yeah. So who is watching this jiva? Who is observing this jiva? Not only in retrospect. The mind can in retrospect see, I had these thoughts, and this thought. But moment to moment there is awareness as the unchanging background of every experience. It's all the time present as the knower, but the real knower. You understand? You have the I thought and the background. The I thought keeps changing because it's a function of the three energies. But there is this knower that can be only realized by being isolated, by discrimination between Satya and Mithya, the subject and the object. Anything that can be seen, objectified and experienced is not me, I'm the knower, I'm the seer. And then you keep doing that. It becomes subtler and subtler and subtler until you see yourself as consciousness alone.
Actually, it's clear, but at a certain point I started to think maybe it's just, my mind making a trick here, trying to
I understand.
You're not
Yeah.
really understanding, you know, you're
Yeah.
still within Nitya,
Yeah.
trying to make a new construction, which is also not correct.
I understand.
So,
It's the mind, it's the self, it's the I, reflect I, the thought, the I thought, again and again, superimpose itself on awareness, you understand?
Exactly, it's
Yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
the other way around.
Yeah, you just say, no, I am the self here, and then we say, no,
Exactly.
the self is the
It's
self
like,
here.
Like ignorance putting pressure, saying,
Yeah.
no, it's not the way you
Yeah,
do, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So I'm kind of, who is right
Yeah,
here, you know?
yeah,
It's like a confidence that the understanding is there, but the ignorance is putting so much
Yeah.
pressure.
Such is
and
the
then
power,
confusion
such is the
arises.
power of mind, Maya, and the ignorance.
So I need to shraddha. You want
Shut up.
He said Shraddha, trust on the scriptures.
That's what I need to do.
Very
I
nice.
try to shut up.
No. Please go on.
They are tired.
They don't come, Kalin does not come? Okay,
Karim maybe, but not the group.
I see.
Yeah. I just mentioned.
Yeah,
Jet lag and too tired after 9 days.
Yeah.
We need to rest.
okay. One, two, three. Sadashiva Samanambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Gurate Meti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavada Vyapata Dehaya Dakshinamurtya Namaha Sarvavedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govidam Paramanandam Satiguru Pranachoshmaham. Om Shanti. So the statement from the scripture, the most important mantra of the scriptures is Tatvamasi. You're that. It takes a lot of contemplation till we really accept that without doubt, you know. There is only one I, and I am that. And I am the self, I am consciousness. Hello? Okay, the next verse is 63, 64, is that so?
Yep.
The teacher then said, yes, let's see what was the last statement. The student turns to the teacher, the previous statement, and asks for help, for some way to keep from drawing in what appears to be a void of concept, samsara. And the teacher provides the help needed as unfolded in the following verse. The teacher said, yes, the self is the knower of the emptiness. Before, the student was concerned about drawing in this vast ocean of emptiness and losing any reference about his own identity. You are the knower of the emptiness. That's the key. You always have to trace the knower of any question, of any doubt. Who is the knower of this doubt? It is the knower of the emptiness. That's you, limitless awareness. You are an adept at inquiry. What it means an adept at inquiry?
Skill.
Huh?
Skill.
Skilled. Okay. Yeah. With a few words, the teacher has shifted the student's focus from the ego to the self. So the ego, the mind, has a thought, and then immediately the thought was so frightening that the self identifies with that thought. Oh, there is only emptiness, and I have lost myself. I have lost my existence here. The thought is frightening, and immediately there is an identification taking place. And the student is panicking and asking a question from the standpoint of ignorance, identification with the body-mind, and says, oh, what am I going to do now? And then the teacher shifts the student's attention from ignorance, from the ego to the self, by saying, you are the knower of emptiness. That's you, limitless awareness, the only knower there is. He has taken his attention away from the void left by the negations and placed it on that which witnessed the negations, and which even now witness the student's feeling of emptiness. It placed it on that which witnessed the negations, and which even now witness the student's feeling of emptiness. So the self is the only witnessing principle. Even witnessing is a little bit misleading because it implies duality. It's witnessing something, but it's the only game in town. I mean, how to put it,
Was not that with chasing object?
Huh?
Was not that with chasing object?
Yeah, it's the only gameless game in town. There's no game. There's only you. After the 5 sheets have been shown to be unreal, the ego, which is the tendency of awareness to rest in objects, remains an inertial force. It's resisting. It's like it's heavy, it's temazic. You say, oh no, I have lost it all. It looks at the body-mind and the 3 states, but can find no place to grab, to identify, to create roots and to claim as myself. As its substratum awareness no longer identifies with these seeming objects. How nice, huh? As its substratum awareness no longer identifies with those levels of experience. And the ego is a little bit nervous. I was the sheriff here before, and now all this talk about transcending me and establish oneself as awareness. So the ego gets a little bit shaken. It wonders, if I am none of these things I have identified with, so what am I? The teacher answers, you are that which knows all, even the emptiness that you are experiencing. We have established before that the emptiness is absence of object, but absence of object is by itself an experience, an object of experience, because it can be objectified. Oh, there was nothing there. I went into the cinema and then the projector was broke and there was no image on the screen. So the absence of image is an object by itself. So same way, the absence of objects appearing in the screen of the mind is by itself an object of experience. We know that is something other than myself. The teacher answers, you are that which knows all, even the emptiness that you experience. You are the witness of all that comes and goes. The aim of Vedanta is to effect this shift of attention. Shift of attention from that which is known to the witnessing awareness. So this is an expression that I like, a shift of attention, a shift of identity, a shift of stand, a shift of a platform, a shift of perspective from a higher, from another realm of perspective, from the Satya perspective. The aim of Vedanta is to effect this shift. But we need to remember that it's not like Nisargadatta Maharaj present to us. It's not like a transfer. I stayed 20 years waiting for the train to transfer me from here, until I understood that there was no translocation involved. It was just a transfer in understanding, right? Because if we are caught up on these experiential notions, we keep waiting for a merge, a transfer, a transcendence, and whatnot. Huh? Transmission and?
A step. That's another one. Like you're, all of a sudden you'll take another step.
I step towards, action. Action. Action experience. The student has arrived at a crucial stage in his inquiry, and he has asked the right question, for which the teacher commends him. Commends? What is commends? Praises him. We have a deeply ingrained habit of thinking we are the objects we perceive. And even when these objects are negated, even when we know the body-mind to be the not-self, the ego resurrects and steers our doubts and fears. Yeah? Even when we are clear, the ignorance is so cynic, so trick. When we think that we are done with it and they are no longer going to knock and come by the back door or by the window, when we see it's already operating. This morning a lady came to me and she was like, oh my God, everything that I heard today resonates, it's the truth. Now I know. So once I know it, how I'm going to forget it? It's impossible because, I know it's the truth. Meaning to say, no, job is done. And say, how can I'm going to go back to my life and it's very busy and intense, but how can I forget that? I will never forget that because it's the truth. And then I have to give her the bad news. I say, hey, it's not really like that. This light goes on, but somehow ignorance is so trick and so cynic that it's going to be challenging this clarity of knowledge, this stand in awareness. It's going to keep pressing, themselves. And then when we see, as it says here, it steers, very nicely put here.
And steers our doubts and fears.
Yeah, even then, again, it's tears of doubts and fears, telling us that we have lost everything, even when we have lost nothing but our very source of misery, identification with time-bound object. We have lost nothing. We have lost that which is producing suffering, which is the very source of suffering. But the ego is going to be so trick or ignorance. Let's talk in terms of ego now, in terms of ignorance, wrong knowledge is going to come by the back door and challenge the clarity of vision, the knowledge, the pure knowledge, the certainty, the conviction. Self-knowledge is nothing but a firm conviction in the knowledge. This confidence is what counts. How many times we have this clear vision, but then life comes and then our conviction is shaken. And then we doubt the scriptures, we doubt ourselves. and you begin reinforce ignorance. Such the power of Maya, ignorance.
Well, the identification with the jiva is back, and then you forget your primary identity.
Yeah, apparently you forget it. Yeah. So that such is the power of Maya. No? So it's interesting because it says that ignorance resurrects itself and steers doubts and fears. We have been going through a week here of a lot of doubts and suspiciousness. Lack of shraddha towards the scripture came up in our group, and it was very good it came up, you know. The only loser in this process is the ego, which looks into the void that is always it always rise and dissolves, just as the snake that never was dissolves in the knowledge of the rope. So he's looking at the dissolution of wrong notions of ignorance, which is going to free him. Because as we know, knowledge is nothing but the neutralization or removal of ignorance. So, and we keep this ignorance so tight and dearly, you know, it's mine. The negations must be repeated and reinforced. That's why we are here. I mean, many of us here have this knowledge very clear. But it's all nididhyasana, you know? It's all nididhyasana. We know how tough ignorance is. Then we want to keep this knowledge always fresh, working for us to the point that we don't need to work for it even. It just works spontaneously. Need to be repeated and reinforced by an ever vigilant discrimination that carries on in our day-to-day activities of life. Activities, mental, physical or no activities. We have to keep that clear in our mind. And the teaching has to remain alive in our mind. We are trying to free ourselves from identifications that have come so habitual. So discrimination has to become habitual. We need to develop a vasana for Satya-Mithya discrimination. We need to develop a Satya-Mithya discrimination vasana to neutralize again and again ignorance. This is one of the tools, the most fundamental and the one that we are hammering all through these weeks. But all other teachers, the same thing, all other teachings. So they have to be there. We have to have a Vedanta Vasana, body of Vasana that neutralize ignorance as it comes, because it comes in all shapes, forms, and perfumes. It manifests themselves. And then we have to have the proper teaching to deal with it. Moksha is not a discrete experience, like the epiphanies that sometimes occur in meditation. It is knowledge that must become firm through persistent application. We always believed in the past, I mean nearly all of us, we all come from those misleading ideas that enlightenment is an event, an experience, an epiphany. Most of us. So to let go of that idea and to fully understand, value, and bring the scriptures of knowledge in your life as the only means to resolve this human condition, of suffering. It takes a lot of clarity, a lot of maturity. Because these epiphanies and experience, they have been very deeply ingrained in our mind as enlightenment, as moksha. I met Osho Rajneesh in my early days, and he only credentials he had about his enlightenment was the list of his epiphanies. Oh, 1,000 suns, the self, and geez, and then that happened to me, that happened to me. You go and read the biography of people like Gangaji. The only credential she has, again, is a very beautiful list of epiphanies. So it's all over the world, the spiritual world. People think that enlightenment is an experience. Some people may gain the knowledge through an epiphany, but a lot of people don't get self-knowledge through an epiphany, and they just keep remembering or trying to reproduce those experiences. So enlightenment is moksha, is the knowledge, a knowledge that must become firm through persistent nididhyasana, application. And then the last sentence is a sentence that by now we are all very advanced students here, we are advanced inquirers. It says here, so it's not a problem for us to repeat, Vedanta requires work. Isn't it great? I mean, one needs to do something, right? One needs to do something. Why not to do the good work? Right? Well, I think after all this knowledge, we are not going to go about chasing boys and girls, right?
And it is fun.
Even if it may be fun, you leave that to Ishwara. That's what I was trying to say today. Ishwara is going to look for girls and boys for us. But you look for knowledge. So enlightenment is not an experience, but if we are really crazy about experience, we can say that it's an experience of identity as the self. It's not by itself an experience. It's knowledge. When knowledge is hard and fast, firm, without doubt. You know what you are. But we can also present it a little bit, not like mystic Vedanta, but a little concession. This is something I brought up years back talking to Ramji. I was insisting with Ramji, but there is some element of experiencing self-knowledge. And I see that he's very dry in experiencing, in expressing any experience connotation to enlightenment. And then I told, how about that, Ramji? It's not an experience, but an experience of identity. And then he said, bingo! Okay, approved, an experience of identity. Okay, verse 65. Please know in your intellect that you are limitless, timeless awareness that shines by itself in the waking, dream, and deep sleep states. Did you hear that? Please know in your intellect. Oh, intellect? Come on. I'm done with intellect. I want to know here. I want to feel it and know here. Oh, it's in the intellect. It's the only faculty or instrument for knowledge we have. Have you noticed that enlightenment or self-realization is never referred as self-experience? It's always as self-knowledge. Otherwise we would say, oh yes, the guy is self-experienced. No, the guy knows himself. He knows what he is. He has the knowledge. It's in the intellect. I lost it. How? I did not change the page.
65.
Oh yeah. Please know in your intellect that you are the limitless, timeless awareness that shines by itself in the waking, dream, and deep sleep states. that shines as experiential bliss, and that shines both as I and the I behind the I. The I being the reflection is within the experience, the realm of experience of the experience entity, okay, the experiencer and the knower of object. That is experiential bliss. The shine as experiential bliss and shines both as the I and the I behind the I, the innermost self and the reflect self. The reflect self illumines objects. The student is reassured that he has lost nothing through the successive negations that have left him with a sense of emptiness. He is gently reminded that he is the self, and provided yet again with descriptions of the self that have appeared already in previous verse. The teacher counsels to the student to use his intellect to know the nature of the self. This is an exhortation to discrimination. Exhortation is encouragement. This is an encouragement to discriminate. That is, to know that the self is not to be identified with the objects appearing in it. Any of the states that appear, any of the apparent covers of the self or koshas and sheets and so on. The self is that unchanged awareness that witness all that comes and goes. The 5 sheets, the states of waking, dream and sleep, every experience of bliss, and every object perceived by the mind. The student's sense of emptiness, which the teacher is now trying to fill with knowledge of the self, that's very nice, huh? We negate everything. What have we negate in the first stage of our inquiry? Wrong notions, misapprehension, superimpositions or projection, taking the robe to be a snake. We have to negate all those appearances. So we went through negating ignorance, and now the student is empty. The teacher starts filling the student with knowledge. Nice, huh? Now you're empty. We have cleaned the basement, the living room, the kitchen. We got rid of all garbage that was there, and now let's get some new furniture there. You know, like take away all these plastic chairs.
And we build a golden cage.
Huh? No, because there will be beautiful wooden chairs, but they are built by knowledge, pure consciousness, all constructed by consciousness. The student does not get deceived when he sees the knowledge behind every object, you know. Trying to fill with the knowledge of the self has apparent risen from the imperfection of his negations. Let's try to understand it better. The student's sense of this sense of emptiness was arising from the imperfection of his negations. What is the imperfection here? We have tried to establish the self through negations. We negate everything that is contained in the self. And we missed out on the background, the space in which everything was being superimposed, right? We negate everything which was project, and then the very background we have missed because it's so obvious, huh? It's like we get a piece of paper, there are a lot of words, we start reading it, everybody misses the paper, the white paper, the background, we miss it. So the student have negate all through discrimination, all the reality to all those objects and missed the only thing real, which was the unchanged background, the knower. This is the imperfection of his negations. And moreover, the self may be empty of any superimposition, but it's always full. Full of what?
Joy.
Yes, full of itself. There is only me. There is only me. And I am full. Everything is just the I. As each manifestation of the not-self is shown by analysis to be unreal, the student feels he is negating his very being. He is still taking his stand in some aspect of his experience. The confusion here is all about that. The self, confuses itself with its own experience. With the aid of subtle body, the self becomes the knower experience, and then confuses itself with its own experience. He felt it was negating his whole being. He is still taking a stand in the ego, the reflect I sense. So the teacher must remind him of important distinction. In an earlier verse, the distinction between aham and ahamkara was explained. Aham stands for I as the changeless, limitless self. And ahamkara is for the reflection of the self, the I, the reflected I. The reflect I that identifies with changing objects. The suffix kara indicates that which is subject to modification. Aham, the I that is subject to change, modification. Every time this I has an experience, meaning to say a contact with an object, it modifies to the experience. But aham does not modify to any experience. It's the substratum, it's the background, it's the knower, it's the witnessing principle, it's what we are. Simple. It's purely the I with no attributes or qualities, the partless, actionless I. The I with attributes is a modification of the I, and therefore it has qualities and attributes. It is this reflect I which defines itself through objects that experience the sense of emptiness in that case. He identifies with objects. We identify with other objects as well. Not this is the case of identification with emptiness, but we identify with our body and then immediately we become the body. When I identify with our thoughts, we become the thinker or the dreamer. We identify with our emotions, we become the one who feels, the feeler. It's just identification through the objects. We identify with our profession and then we become the doctor, the nurse, or whatever, the body worker. Any level of identification is going to determine a certain kind of personality to us. Aspects of the ego. The teacher is telling the student to shift his attention and to take his stand in awareness, and as pure awareness, rather than making a stand in this reflect I, the ego, as the jiva. Why not? Right? Why not? If the ego is, if this identification with something that's time-bound, limit, and so on, is the source of suffering, then nobody can deny that. Why not to just let go of that? And we know it's very simple, but it's not easy. That's why the scripture says Vedanta requires some work. And we need to be ready for the task. No, I'm here to work. One needs to do something and I want to do the good work. He is also preparing the student to reclaim all that has been negated. That is very nice. He is preparing the student to reclaim all that has been negated. Not as the separate objects they were formerly perceived to be, but as the light of awareness shining in all the states, including the experiential bliss. So you negate everything. And then later on, oh my God, what a mistake. I went through the trouble of separate everything, discriminate everything. And now I understood that it's all me. It's just a superimposition and I can play with it. Oh, I have a nice vasana for bliss. Why not? I want to enjoy some bliss sometime. Oh, I have a vasana for this and that, why not? Watch your football game. So just enjoy samsara. You don't need to, as you said earlier, deny. You don't need to be on denial about this apparent reality. No, we can just enjoy it. Okay, let's do the short verse here. The wise are released from samsara by the knowledge that the individual self and the limitless self are no separate, meaning to say there is no distance, there is no separation, nothing separates the self from its objects. There is satya from mithya. Mithya occurs within the scope of satya, and there is no line that separates one from the other. It's all in, none and eyes. They are not separate. Until our discrimination is perfect, we see objects as distinct from the self, and we classify them as the not self. This is a necessary stage for most of us. But the ultimate aim of discrimination is not to cut existence in two parts. Well, we established to begin with that the nature of reality is non-duality, there is only existent consciousness and it's non-dual. So how can we split it in between Satya and Mithya? Give me a break. Vedanta. So you begin with a huge contradiction to begin with, No, it's provisional. It's just a strategy. We need to separate the substratum from that which superimposes on it, so that we can have a clear picture and understand of what we are and why the scripture says that we are free and why they say that we are limitless. Therefore, later on you can open your eyes again and accept all the superimposition. But you are no longer deceived by the superimposition. So you see, this is all me. I don't need to deny it. But they don't bind me anymore. I can even play with everything. We can have a good time. I cannot drink good wine anymore, otherwise I would drink. I like the high of red wine, by the way. I'll leave a glass of wine in the evening with nice cheese and get a little bit high. I like that state of mind, but I cannot anymore because my digestion is compromised. So I have to drink herb tea.
Such is life. Such is life.
Such is life, yeah. The self is Advaita, not two. This division of the self and the not self must remain. This vision of the self to the not self must remain provisionally, for the sake of isolating the self from everything that is apparently covering it or superimposed on it. However, as long as we still believe objects are real and the happiness is found in objects, I read it wrong. The division of the self and not self must remain. However, so long as we still believe objects are real and the happiness is found in objects, this is wrong. There's something wrong with this.
Yeah, just remove the word however. Replace it with just.
Oh.
Just so long.
Oh, just so long.
Yeah, just so long.
Okay. The division of the self and the not self must remain just so long as we'll still believe objects are real and that happiness is found in objects.
In other words,
Still the stage of discrimination.
Huh?
Still the stage of discrimination.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I missed on that one. I'm sorry. It is this belief that keeps us on the wheel of samsara. To get off the wheel of samsara, we must first stop chasing objects. This will not happen so long as we confuse the limitless joy of the self with its reflection, which are the objects, and the individual body-mind, and its experience. So how can we do this discrimination? That's the point here. How can we do this discrimination unless we know what is the self and what is the not self? We have to have the teachings backing us up. This will not happen as long as we confuse the limitless joy, the self, with these reflections. So we must begin our inquiry by separating awareness from the objects that appear in awareness and shifting our identity, our sense from all objects to awareness. In other words, we need to understand very, very clearly what is the subject and what is an object. It is very simple, but it can become very subtle. Anything that's an object, it's classified as apparently real. It does not belong to this order of reality, in which there is only that which is always ever present and never changed. So anything that appears, remains, changes, and disappears, fades, varies in degrees, intensities, and then fades. It's not the self. And we want to isolate the self. It's a very simple teaching. This alone will do the job. Discriminating. We need to do that. Separate the I from the objects that appear to awareness. Once the knowledge that we are pure awareness becomes firm and clear, the division between the self and not self can be seen as a provisional arrangement. Only, it's just temporarily strategy. The individual self can have appeared nowhere except in the limitless self. It's our jiva appearing within the scope of my own conscious existence. And we are advised to love our jiva, right? It's an object that's so dear to us, it every morning it wakes up when you wake up. I mean, awareness never awakes and never sleeps. But every time the jiva awakes, or the mind awakes, the jiva is there, the body is there, let's put it that way. The body is all the time there. With the hair all like that. You go to the bathroom and you fix the body. And then we go about our day. The individual self can have appeared nowhere except in the limitless self. The concept is seemingly paradoxical, but the logic of our analysis leads us inexorably to conclude that the limitless self of the individual is no more than a thought appearing in the limitless self, pure awareness. I don't think anybody has a problem to understand that we are just a concept. And the individual self, the jiva, is just a concept. The I thought is a concept. It's vritti in awareness, a modification in awareness. It's a reflection of consciousness that gives birth to this thought. I am. I exist. Once this is realized, the imaginary wall between the self and not self disappears. What is the distance between the consciousness and the thought appearing in consciousness? So me. Much as the snake in the rope disappears, so the not self disappears. In awareness, once we understand its non-separate nature, samsara, here it says samsara is finished. But it's important to understand that samsara is finished. But samsara is not destroyed.
Ishvara is not finished.
Huh?
Ishvara is not finished.
Yeah, Ishvara is not finished. Ishvara is going to keep producing the world, projecting it. And samsara is finished in the sense that ignorance of the jiva is finished. And now he can relax. Okay, let's take a break.